They say curiosity killed the cat. I never thought those words would haunt me until I accepted the invitation. It all started with a message, just a simple email. One line. Are you brave enough to spend 24 hours inside one of America's most haunted places? Underneath was a location, Waldorf Estate of Fear, Layton, Pennsylvania. I laughed when I read it. Haunted house? I've been to a dozen. Some had spooky lighting, fake blood, maybe a few actors in rubber masks. I figured this was just another Halloween gimmick, but this was different. The email was from the producers of a paranormal reality show. 24 Hours in Hell, a raw, unfiltered, unscripted descent into locations with real supernatural activity. No camera crew, just night vision cams, thermal monitors, and me. I hesitated. Not because I was afraid, but because something about that place felt wrong. Even from the photos, there was a heaviness in the air, a dark undertow pulling at my gut. But then I told myself what every rational person tells themselves. Ghosts aren't real. I replied, I'm in. 3 days later, I was driving up a lonely country road in Carbon County, Pennsylvania. The sky was overcast, but the real gloom seemed to rise from the ground itself. I passed barns, dead trees, and rusted-out vehicles that hadn't moved in decades. When the GPS said, "You have arrived," I saw it. A massive, weather-worn Victorian mansion sitting atop a hill, paint peeling, windows dark. A place that didn't just look abandoned, it looked angry. This was Waldorf Estate. The moment I stepped out of the car, my body reacted. The air was still, too still. No birds, no wind. Just the sound of my own footsteps crunching gravel. I walked to the front gate. A cracked wooden sign hung askew. Waldorf Estate, no entry without permission. I pushed the gate open. It let out a groan like something had just woken up. Inside, the grass was knee-high. A rusted swing hung motionless from a dying oak tree. The porch creaked under my weight, and when I knocked, the door slowly opened, on its own. I whispered to myself, this is part of the show, it has to be. I stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind me. Boom. I froze, my heart was already pounding. Not from fear, at least not yet, but from the overwhelming sense that I had just crossed a threshold I couldn't come back from. The inside was colder than the outside. Dust floated in the air like ash. The walls were covered in faded wallpaper, peeling at the corners like skin. An old piano stood in the corner, untouched, keys yellowed with age. And that smell. A mixture of mildew, old wood, and something metallic. Like blood that had soaked into the floorboards decades ago and never left. A static voice came from the old speaker by the stairwell. Welcome, guest. Your 24 hours begin now. I wanted to laugh. I really did. But my throat had gone dry. They had set up motion detectors, EMF readers, and night vision cameras across the house. I was instructed to document everything, sights, sounds, feelings. But what I didn't expect was that I wouldn't be the one doing most of the talking. As I took my first step deeper into the hallway, I whispered, "All right, let's see if the dead really speak." What I didn't know was that they already were, and they were waiting for me. I've walked through countless doors in my life, hotel rooms, creepy basements, even an abandoned asylum once. But no door ever felt like this one. At the end of the main hallway stood a heavy, rotting oak door. It looked out of place. The rest of the house was in disrepair, sure, but this door looked untouched, like time had paused around it. It wasn't marked, no lock, no knob, just a faint, hand-carved symbol scratched into the wood. A circle, with a jagged X through it. I reached out without thinking. My fingers hovered inches away. Something hit the other side of the door. Hard, once, and then silence. I yanked my hand back like I'd touched fire. Okay, maybe let's not do that yet, I muttered, forcing a nervous laugh. But the air shifted. The hallway grew colder. I checked the thermometer on my camera, and it dropped 10 degrees in under 5 seconds. The EMF reader in my vest pocket began to blink. Then, the door opened. on its own, a slow, dragging creak, long and aching like something ancient waking up. No wind, no mechanism, just opening, as if inviting me in. I told myself this was part of the experience, the show, some hidden tech, maybe magnets. But inside, something primal screamed, "Don't go in there." I ignored it. I stepped through. On the other side was a narrow corridor, far older than the rest of the house. The floorboards were uneven, sloped, and covered in a layer of black dust. The walls were stone, damp, with thick veins of mold snaking along the edges. It didn't feel like part of the same building. It felt like a secret, buried beneath the house. A wound that never healed. I took a breath and whispered, "Hello? Is anyone here?" That's when I heard it. A voice, a whisper, almost childlike, right behind my ear. "Go back." I turned sharply to no one, just the empty hallway behind me. The camera captured it, not just the audio. A shadow, tall, thin, lurking for a fraction of a second, then gone. My hands were shaking, but I kept walking. I had to. The corridor ended at another door, smaller, wooden, burnt around the edges. Something had clearly tried to destroy it, but failed. That same circle X symbol was carved into this one too, only deeper, angrier. I reached out again, and this time, the air around the door felt alive, like static crawling up my arm. My heart raced, but I pressed forward. When I opened it, the smell hit me first. Sofa, burned hair, rotting meat. Then I saw the room. Stone walls. One small wooden chair in the center. Rusted shackles bolted to the arms. The floor is stained with dark blotches, hundreds of them. I whispered, "What the hell was this place?" No answer. But the EMF spiked. The motion sensor beeped. And from the far corner came the soft, steady sound of breathing. Slow, labored, in and out. I froze. "Is someone there?" I called out. The breathing stopped. Then a low growl. Deep, animalistic, wrong. I backed out of the room, fast, and that's when the door slammed shut, hard enough to shake the walls. I stood there, heart hammering, trying to process what just happened. The camera was still rolling. The temperature continued to drop. And on the audio playback later that night, I would discover something else. As I stepped away, there was a voice I never heard in the moment, a raspy whisper. "You've been marked." After the cursed door slammed shut, I staggered back down the hall, my breathing ragged. I didn't know what that thing was in the dark, or what it meant when it said I'd been marked, but I knew I couldn't stay in that wing much longer. My hands were shaking as I checked the footage. The whisper, the shadow, the breathing, it was all there. But just as I started to feel the fear creeping under my skin, the air around me changed again. The hallway brightened, warmer somehow, like someone was watching, but not with malice. It was softer, sad almost. That's when I heard the music. It was faint, like an old music box, playing a simple lullaby, out of tune and worn with age. It echoed from the second floor, near what the crew had labeled the nursery room. According to the legends, it was where a little girl named Beatrice had once lived, or died. I hesitated, still rattled from what I'd just experienced, but something told me this was different. This wasn't the same evil that lived behind that cursed door. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step creaking beneath my feet. The melody got clearer the closer I got. I reached the nursery door and pushed it open. The room was still. Dust floated in the air like mist caught in sunlight. Faded wallpaper peeled off in strips. A single wooden rocking horse stood in the corner, its paint chipped and cracked. And there, on the windowsill, sat a porcelain doll with one missing eye. But it wasn't the doll that chilled me. It was the music box sitting on the child-sized bed. It was open, but no one had wound it. I stepped inside gently and whispered, "Beatrice, are you here?" The room felt heavier, like it was holding its breath. I sat on the bed, careful not to disturb anything, and slowly wound the music box once. The tune changed, slower, more sorrowful. "Do you want to talk?" I asked softly. "I'm listening." A breeze stirred the curtains, even though the windows were closed. Then I heard a voice, young, female, barely a whisper. "I miss the sun." I froze. "What did you say?" "The sun. I haven't felt it in so long." The temperature dropped slightly. I turned on the spirit box just in case. Static roared for a moment, then, cold, alone, "Beatrice." The name came through clearly. 3 separate voices said it, like the house itself wanted me to remember her. I reached into my bag and pulled out a small, laminated photo, a replica of a historical portrait I'd found during pre-research. A little girl in a white dress, clutching the same porcelain doll now sitting by the window. "Is this you?" I asked. No response, but the EMF meter lit up from green to red. I placed the photo gently on the bed and said, "You're not forgotten, Beatrice. I see you. I hear you." For a moment, nothing. Then the rocking horse moved. Not much, just a small nudge forward and back. But it was enough. I felt the air shift again, warmth spreading across my arm, like a child's hand resting there. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just let her be. That night, when I played back the audio, something else emerged. In the static of the spirit box, just under the voices I heard humming. A child's voice. The same lullaby the music box played. I'd come to Waldorf Estate, expecting demons, poltergeists, terror. And I found that, but I also found Beatrice a lonely spirit still waiting to be remembered. And somehow, that was even more haunting. They told me not to go into the basement. Every ghost hunter, every local, even the caretaker who opened the gates that morning had said the same thing. Stay out of the basement, that's where he lived. But I couldn't help myself. I had to know what they meant by he. The staircase down was narrow and steep. The wooden steps groaned under my weight, and the air smelled old, like mildew and rust and something else, something metallic. As I reached the bottom, my flashlight flickered. Once, twice, then it held. The beam cut across the room, bare brick walls, rusted pipes, and strange markings scratched into the stone. Symbols I didn't recognize. Circles, hooks, claw-like patterns that repeated in a rhythm I couldn't decipher. The temperature plummeted. I scanned the basement and found an old metal table shoved against the far wall. Chains dangled from hooks above it. A single, rusted drain sat below. It didn't take much imagination to understand what this room had been used for. I whispered into the dark, "Is someone down here?" No answer. So I did what any foolish investigator with too much pride would do. I kept going. There was a second room off to the side. The door was heavy, steel, and it groaned like a wounded animal when I pulled it open. Inside, the walls were covered in writing, jagged and desperate. Not spray paint, not charcoal, scratched in. Hundreds of times. "He walks still. He feeds on pain. The butcher is not dead." I stepped inside slowly, recording everything. That's when I heard the chains rattle. I turned fast. Nothing. Then I heard the breathing. Deep. Wet. Like lungs filled with tar. "Who's there?" I called out. And I swear, I heard someone laugh. Not loud, not joyful. Just a dry, brittle chuckle from the shadows. I aimed my flashlight toward the far wall, and that's when I saw the name. Etched into the bricks in deep, violent cuts. Murphy. The legend goes like this. Back in the early 1900s, a man named Thomas Murphy lived on the estate. He was a butcher by trade, but people whispered he had a taste for more than just livestock. They say he lured travelers off the road, promised shelter, and then experimented. He vanished after a fire destroyed part of the estate. Everyone assumed he died in the blaze, but nobody was ever found. Just blood. So much blood. The townsfolk closed off the basement and never spoke of it again. Until people started seeing him. Not his ghost. Not a mist or a shadow. Him. A tall figure with a blood-soaked apron and hollow eyes, dragging chains through the woods behind the house. Visitors reported hearing meat cleavers slam against stone, hearing a voice muttering recipes that didn't sound like they involved animals. I didn't believe it, until the smell hit me. Not mold, not sulfur. Raw meat, fresh blood. And in the silence, a voice rasped from behind me. "You shouldn't have come." I turned, expecting to see someone. But there was no one. Only the rusted table, the drain, the scratching. I backed out slowly, heart pounding. When I reached the stairs, I found something new carved into the wooden rail. Fresh, wet, still hungry. After the basement, I thought I had seen the worst this place could offer. But I was wrong. I made my way back upstairs, my flashlight barely cutting through the thick darkness. The air felt heavier now, as if the house was holding its breath, waiting. I reached the main hallway when suddenly I heard it. A door creaked open, slowly, all on its own. I stopped dead, my heart thudded in my ears. No way. I edged closer, shining my light on the door at the end of the hallway. The wood looked old, splintered and stained, like it had been sealed for decades, but there it was, moving just enough to let in a sliver of darkness. I called out softly, "Hello, is someone there?" No answer. I felt a cold draft rush past me, the smell of damp earth and something else rotten. I pushed the door open cautiously. It groaned like a beast waking from slumber. Inside was a room I hadn't seen before. The walls were lined with mirrors, but they weren't reflecting me. Instead, the glass was fogged and cracked, and in every mirror I saw shadows. Not my own. Figures moving just beyond the glass, shapes that flickered in and out. I blinked, and they were gone. What the hell? I stepped further inside. The door slammed shut behind me. I spun around, banging on it. "Let me out, someone." Silence. Only the faint whisper of voices from the mirrors. They called my name. "Don't leave. Stay. We're here." The shadows began to gather, stretching out like claws, reaching for me through the cracked glass. I tried to back away, but the room seemed to shrink, walls closing in. Panic surged through me. I shouted, "Leave me alone." Suddenly a cold hand gripped my wrist. I looked down. No one was there. The grip tightened. I yanked my arm free and ran for the door. It flung open as if pushed by an unseen force. I stumbled out, gasping for air. The hallway was empty again, but I knew the shadows were watching, waiting. I thought after everything I'd seen so far, the worst was behind me. But the house wasn't done, not by a long shot. That night, I settled into the main room, trying to keep calm. I set up my equipment, cameras, recorders, everything I could find to catch any activity. I wasn't just a visitor anymore. I was a witness. Then, it started. At first, just little noises. A faint tapping on the walls, like fingers drumming out a warning. I sat frozen. Is someone there? No answer, just the tapping growing louder, faster. Then objects began to move. A chair scraped across the floor on its own. Books fell from the shelves. Lights flickered violently, plunging the room into darkness and back again. I tried to steady my breathing, telling myself it was just old wiring or the wind. But deep down, I knew this was something else. Suddenly, a vase shattered at my feet. I jumped back, heart racing. Okay, that's enough. But the house was angry, and it wanted me to know. The temperature dropped sharply. My breath fogged in front of me. From the corner of the room, I saw a shadow dart across the wall. Fast, almost too fast to see. Then came the slamming doors, one after another. Every door in the house was banging shut, hard enough to shake the walls. I shouted, "Stop, please." But the noise didn't stop. It only got worse. I ran toward the stairs, but a cold force slammed into me, knocking me down. Pain shot through my arm as if invisible hands were squeezing. I scrambled to my feet, my equipment scattering across the floor. My recorder picked up a voice low, guttural, filled with rage. "Leave, now." I didn't need telling twice. I grabbed my gear and ran out the front door, the sound of the house screaming after me. Outside, the night was silent again, but I knew the anger hadn't left. It was waiting, watching. After escaping the violent fury inside the house, I needed air, a break from the suffocating darkness and terror. I wandered the estate's grounds, surrounded by twisted trees and overgrown bushes that clawed at my clothes. The night felt alive in a way I couldn't explain, like the land itself was watching me. Then, just ahead, I saw it, an old, wrought iron gate, almost swallowed by thick vines and moss. Its black metal bars twisted with age and rust, but it stood there, like a sentinel, guarding some forbidden secret. I stepped closer, my flashlight trembling in my hand. The temperature dropped sharply, and the air grew thick with a strange energy, unlike anything I had felt before. I took a deep breath and whispered, "What is this place?" As I reached out to touch the cold iron, a sudden shock pulsed through me, like electricity running up my arm. The world around me warped, the trees seemed to bend, the shadows deepened, and a low hum filled the air. For a moment, everything blurred. The sounds of crickets and distant night birds faded away. Instead, a chilling silence enveloped me. I blinked, and the world had changed. The sky above was a swirling mass of dark clouds, twisted and unnatural. The trees, once tall and proud, were now gnarled, their branches like grasping hands reaching into a void. The ground beneath me felt unstable, almost like I was standing on the edge of a precipice between two realities. I could feel it. This gate wasn't just a physical barrier. It was a threshold, a bridge connecting the living world to something else, something ancient. Is this real? Am I somewhere else? My voice echoed oddly, like it was swallowed by the very air. From the edges of my vision, shadows stirred, but these were different. They weren't just flickers or silhouettes. They had substance, though hazy and shifting, like ghosts caught between existence and oblivion. Then I heard whispers, soft, haunting, impossible to localize. "Welcome. You've crossed the line." The voices were both a warning and a call. Fear tightened its grip around my chest, but a strange part of me was drawn forward. A mixture of dread and fascination pushed me closer to the gate's threshold. I stepped through. The sensation was disorienting, like walking through thick water while still breathing air. Every step felt surreal. Time seemed to slow, the atmosphere charged with an eerie stillness. I glanced around and noticed faint outlines in the distance. Figures, barely visible watchers from beyond. Their eyes seemed to pierce through me. Suddenly, a soft wailing sound broke the silence, a mournful cry echoing through the void. And then she appeared, a woman, shimmering like mist, her translucent form illuminated by a pale light. Her eyes were filled with sorrow, her expression pleading. She reached out her hand toward me. "Help me." Her voice was barely a whisper, but it cut through the silence like a knife. I wanted to ask her name, why she was trapped here, but my throat tightened, words failing me. I could only stare, frozen by a mix of sympathy and terror. At that moment I understood. This gateway wasn't just a physical portal. It was a place where lost souls lingered, where the boundary between life and death grew thin and fragile. I felt the weight of their pain, centuries of sorrow and regret pressed into this liminal space. I wanted to help her, to find a way to free her. But something warned me. Crossing this threshold came with a price. I wasn't sure if I would be able to return, and I wasn't sure I wanted to. Because beyond this gate, the line between reality and nightmare had vanished. After crossing that mysterious gateway, I felt as if a shadow had settled inside me. At first, it was just a faint unease, like a cold draft that wouldn't leave my bones, or a whisper in the silence of the night. But the feeling quickly grew darker, heavier. The nights became restless. I kept waking up, drenched in sweat, feeling eyes on me, though I was alone. One night, as I lay in bed, I heard my name being called softly, almost lovingly, but it wasn't me speaking. I tried to shake it off. It's just your mind playing tricks, I told myself. But deep down, I feared it was something else. I started seeing shadows in the corners of my vision, shapes that moved when I blinked, but vanished when I turned to look. Then came the voices, at first, just whispers. Then, urgent murmurs demanding my attention. I caught myself talking to no one in particular. "Who's there? Show yourself." But the room stayed empty. I noticed my reflection in the mirror one evening, and froze. There was something wrong with my eyes. They looked darker, hollow, as if they held secrets I wasn't meant to know. I touched my face, and felt a numbness spread from my fingertips through my entire body. And then I heard it again, a voice in my ear, cold and commanding. "You belong to us now." I whipped around, but the room was empty. Fear gripped my heart like an iron fist. The feeling of being invaded, of losing control, was overwhelming. Days turned into nights and back again, but the darkness inside me only grew. My thoughts became clouded. I couldn't focus. I stopped eating properly. Even my closest friends noticed the change. They asked, "Are you okay? You seem different." I lied. "I'm fine, just tired." But the truth was, I was slipping away. One morning, I woke to find strange symbols scrawled on my bedroom walls, black marks that looked like they had been drawn with dirt or ash. My hands shook as I traced the eerie shapes. I could feel a presence lurking in the shadows, watching me, waiting. I whispered, desperate, "Please, leave me alone." But the shadows only grew darker. I realized then that whatever haunted the Waldorf estate had attached itself to me. I wasn't just an intruder anymore. I was becoming a vessel for the darkness. Every glance in the mirror reminded me that I was losing myself. The face staring back was becoming a stranger's. I didn't know how much longer I could hold on. I wondered if I had already lost my soul, if this was the price for crossing into that cursed place. The darkness inside me had become unbearable by now. It was like an unshakable shadow clinging to my thoughts, whispering secrets and threats I didn't want to hear. One night, as I sat alone in my room, trying to calm my racing mind, my phone suddenly buzzed. I glanced down, expecting a message from a friend, but the screen was blank. No name, no number. Just a single text that read, "We need to talk." My heart skipped a beat. I barely managed to whisper, "Who is this?" There was no reply. And then, before I could even process what was happening, my phone screen went black. I tried to turn it back on, but it was dead. I looked around, half expecting someone to be playing a cruel joke. But I was alone. Minutes later, my computer suddenly flickered to life. The screen illuminated the dark room, and words began appearing slowly, letter by letter. "You cannot escape us." I felt a cold wave wash over me. Fear gripped my chest like a vice. I shouted at the empty room, "What do you want from me? Why are you doing this?" Silence, only silence. It was as if I was trapped in a one-sided conversation with a presence I could neither see nor understand. The messages kept coming over the next few days. Strange hints, cryptic warnings, pieces of a puzzle I couldn't begin to solve. One night, the messages suddenly stopped. Instead, I heard a voice, soft, urgent, and almost pleading. I leaned in closer, heart pounding. Listen carefully. I could barely breathe. "There is a way out, but you must choose." I swallowed hard. Choose what? The answer came immediately, chilling me to the bone. To stay or to leave. To carry this burden or to let it go. I felt torn, trapped between two impossible choices. This darkness was a part of me now, but I wanted freedom more than anything. My voice cracked as I whispered to the empty air, "How do I let it go?" For a long moment, there was only silence. Then the voice spoke again, softer this time, almost like a distant memory. "Find the light within you, the light they sear. Hold on to it. It is your only hope." That moment changed everything. I realized my fight was far from over. But for the first time in days, I had a weapon, a spark of hope against the overwhelming shadows. I still didn't know what awaited me, but I was ready to face it head on. I never thought I would make it out alive. The moment I stepped away from Waldorf Estate felt like breaking free from a nightmare that had held me captive. But the relief was short-lived, because even now, months later, I still feel it. That shadow clinging to the edges of my mind, like a ghost haunting the corners of my thoughts. Sometimes, when I'm alone in the dark, I hear faint whispers, soft voices calling my name. I try to tell myself it's just my imagination, but deep down, I know it's not. I asked myself often, why did this happen to me? And why does part of it still follow me? I remember the final moments inside the estate, the cold air, the flickering lights, the overwhelming sense that something was watching me. As I left, I thought I had escaped. But I didn't realize that escaping the place didn't mean escaping what had attached itself to me. One night, I woke up suddenly. A cold breast brushed my neck. I shivered, whispering, "Is someone there?" No answer, but I could feel a presence, quiet, patient, waiting. I found myself checking every corner of my home, every locked door and window. I began to understand that whatever had latched onto me was not bound by walls or distance. It had crossed over with me. I've learned to live with it, to keep it at bay. But sometimes, in moments of weakness, the darkness pushes harder. I can feel it trying to take over again. There are nights when I stare into the mirror and barely recognize the person staring back. I whisper to myself, "This is not who you are. Fight." Because I know this battle isn't over. It never will be. But I refuse to let the darkness win. I carry the scars of that night, both seen and unseen. And though a part of me remains in that cursed place, I live every day determined to reclaim my life, to prove that even when hell touches you, you can still find a way back to the light.
Did you enjoy this content? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Support us with a like and subscribe so our channel can reach more people. Thanks for watching until the end.